Make our way from Cantos 21 to 27, Lord willing, which should get us all the way to the border of Eden, which is the very top of the mountain of Purgatory. Just a quick little recap. So last week we made our way from 13 to 20. In Canto 17, Virgil gave us what you could consider to be a map of the mountain of Purgatory, teaching that, again, that all of our actions begin in love, which is kind of Dante's big thing. It just depends on what that love is directed towards, right? So if you remember, Inferno is the punishment of disordered love. Purgatory is the reordering of our loves. It's the sanctification of our loves. So it's whether or not our love is leading to sin, right? And so he gives us a good map of the mountain in Canto 17. But then after that, we start hitting these upper terraces, which is where we're at now. We've looked at sloth and avarice last week very briefly. In sloth, we realized that the problem is not the good itself, but the failing to pursue it with enough love and urgency. So, you're being slothful. We saw some examples of this at the bottom of the mountain when we first started a few weeks ago, particularly with a friend of Dante who just wasn't ready to climb, right? But we know he's probably going to hang out on the terrace of sloth for a while on his way up. And then with avarice, we saw that wealth and status are not evil, but they can become distorted when they're treated as the source of security. Right? So this is really somewhat an image of Paul's, the love of money is the root of evil. And then we also saw the return of the she-wolf that we saw in the very first canto of Inferno last week. We saw her return. And then we also saw a siren, so like the sirens from Homer's Odyssey.
I forgot. What was that she-wolf doing?
So
there.
Yeah. So she was. Let me back up to my actual notes from that, just so I can give you a better than just a recap. All right. So this is the same wolf that blocked Dante's path in the dark forest. There, she represented the sin of incontinence, so disordered appetites that were punished in upper hell. But those disordered appetites are now being purified in purgatory. So her defining characteristic in Inferno was insatiability. So the more she consumed, the more she wanted to consume, right? She just could not get full. And so she's there to represent that sin is being corrected now in purgatory. So that's why she's there. So this week brings us to the final stages of upper purgatory. Essentially, again, we'll get to the doorway to Eden. But as we read, our question now is what is the soul being trained to see and to desire and to become? This is basically, again, as we mentioned last week, what we do in liturgy, right? So this is formation. So it's just going to continue to form us. Are there any questions before we dive into Canto 21? Okay. So, in relation to purgatory itself, Canto 21 it explains the earthquake that we saw last week in Canto 20. For those that were here or have listened to the recording, which just uploaded this morning, so you may not have listened to it yet, you already know what the answer to this is, but there was a great earthquake at the end of Canto 20. And it shook the whole mountain. And Dante and Virgil are looking around at a guide that they actually have, and we're going to see more of him tonight in this first canto. And they're trying to figure out what's going on. Right? So we're going to find out what happened, why this earthquake took place tonight. But we also saw that when that earthquake happened, the souls there started to sing the Gloria Patri. And so now we're going to look at the earthquake. So if you'll take your copy, if you have it, we're going to look at lines 58 to 75, which is on page 464, starting on page 464. So again, Dante and Virgil are still somewhat puzzled by this earthquake. And so a soul approaches and explains that the mountain doesn't shake because of natural forces, right? This isn't like the tectonic plates of the earth moving and causing a natural earthquake. The mountain shakes because a soul has completed its purgation and is now moving into paradise. This is why the mountain shakes. So, starting in line 58, the soul is explaining. He says, it trembles here whenever a soul feels so healed and purified that it gets up or moves to climb, and then the great hymn peals. So, again, the Gloria Patri. The soul, surprised, becomes entirely free. There we go. The soul, surprised, becomes entirely free to change its cloister, moved by its own will, which is its only proof of purity. Before purgation, it does not wish to climb, but the will high justice sets against that wish, moves it to will pain as it once willed crime. And I, who in my torments have lain here 500 years and more, have only now felt my will free to seek a better sphere. So he's been there a while, right? Top of page 465. And it was for you, and it was for that you felt the mountain move and heard the pious spirits praise the Lord. He may call them soon to go above. These were the Spirit's words to us and mine. Cannot express how they refresh my soul, but as the thirst is greater, the sweeter the vine. All right, so the point here is again that the soul doesn't move up just because a certain amount of time has passed. Again, this soul has been here for 500 years. That's a long time to stay. The soul moves when their will has become so aligned with the Lord's that now that they can leave that sin behind and move on up. So that's the image that's happening here. So its desire for sanctification has been healed. And so it becomes ready to ascend when it no longer has any inward resistance to the will of God. And so that helps us really understand what purgatory has been doing this whole time, right? It's the training of our wills, not our wheels. The training of our wills through this liturgy of repetition to desire what God wants and to help us move forward. This is sanctification. So I'll stop there for a moment and let you all respond.
You're a southerner, we have problems pronouncing certain words.
We really do. We really do.
Wheel and
Yeah.
heel.
Wheel and will and pen and pin.
And heel and heel.
It's confusing.
It is. It is. And my lazy North Mississippi tongue definitely doesn't want to.
When I was growing up as Catholic, we would light a candle and try to pray for people on purgatory. You're talking about thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A million in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
A very long journey.
It's a long journey.
Bad people. So,
All right. Well, let's move on and look at Statius. We'll pick up in line 82 in a moment on page 465. But so this newly freed soul that's speaking to them is this Statius himself. Statius was a Roman poet. I think I'm saying his name right. I butcher these names and these terms, so I apologize. I'm going to blame my southern tongue again. He was a Roman poet. He was best known for a work called, I don't know if it's up here for somebody else to help me out, Theobad, I believe. Thebaid. Theobaid? I don't know. I can't pronounce it well. I do the best I can, y'all. But he explains that Virgil's poetry awakened his own poetic vocation. So Virgil inspired him. And so the Aeneid, which is Virgil's greatest work, he has multiple works, but the Aeneid is his great work. It is a companion to Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey. It gave him, the Aeneid gives Statius the model and flame by which he learned to become a poet. And so we're going to go through line 105, which is 103 to 105 are some of my favorite lines, maybe in the entire Purgatory, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So starting in line 82, this is him speaking. He said, in the days when good King Titus, with the aid of the Almighty King, avenged the wounds that poured the blood Iscariot betrayed, I lived renowned back there. So he lived in the 1st century under the Emperor Titus. I lived renowned back there, replied that soul. Keep in mind also Virgil died, I think, in like 70 BC. So you're looking at maybe just a little over 100 years after Virgil has died that Statius is living, at most. So I lived her now back there, replied that soul, in the most honored and enduring name, but still without the faith that makes us whole. My verses swelled with such melodious breath that from Toulouse, Rome called me to herself, and there I merited a laurel wreath. Statius is my name, and it still lives back there. I sang of Thebes and of the great Achilles, but found the second weight too great to bear. The sparks that were my seeds of passion came from that celestial fire which has kindled more than 1,000 poets. I mean the flame of the Aeneid, the mother that brought forth, the nurse that gave suck to my song. Without it I could not have weighed half a penny's worth. And to have lived back there in Virgil's time, I would agree to pass another year in the same banishment from which I climb. So basically what he's saying real quick is that if he could have lived at the same time as Virgil, he would gladly stay in the terrace that he's in for longer. He just idolizes Virgil that much. Right? Virgil was that kind of a hero to him. But here's where this is seriously one of my favorite tercets in all of Purgatory. Virgil, at these last words, shot me a glance and said in silence, "Silence! But man's will is not supreme in every circumstance." Statius doesn't know he's talking to Virgil.
No, he doesn't.
And so Virgil is basically saying, "Don't tell him it's me, be quiet." And it's just kind of funny, right? It's just a funny moment. Because he's throwing out this praise of this poet who really inspired him. And he even says that Virgil gives him something that he could not have produced by himself. He gives him a path into his own vocation. He inspires his imagination. He gives him the language with which to use. But again, Statius doesn't realize that it's Virgil that is standing right next to him. And it actually creates a really sweet but humorous moment in this whole story because it brings together these themes of Purgatorio that we've been looking at. It brings together the fact that no one ascends by themselves, right? We need one another in order to move in our discipleship, right? To help us understand Scripture, to help us know the Lord better, to pray for us, etc. Meaning that we're shaped by those that influence us, whether those people be dead or alive, right? We're shaped by the poets, and we're shaped by authors we read, and we're shaped by friends and examples. But I won't say the irony here, but the irony of this is that Virgil cannot enter heaven himself, but his words helped someone else come to know Christ. Yeah, and this is the mystery that's here. This is what he's saying. He's saying, Virgil's words helped me know Jesus. Because he inspired me so much that I was able to understand the gospel when I heard it. This is what he's saying in lines 88 to 90. My verses swelled with such melodious breath that Rome called to me herself, and there I merited a laurel wreath. This is when I came to faith.
Wow.
Virgil inspired me so much that I came to the church. So I'll stop for a moment and let you all talk. Because again, Virgil is a pagan poet, but somehow inspired this other pagan poet to know Christ.
Well, this could happen. I mean, lost people can read the Scripture to other folks, or perhaps even preach a sermon and people get saved. Again,
Charlatan pastors can do the same thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
What's that?
Charlatan pastors.
Charlatan pastors.
Yeah.
Like your friend Rodney, wasn't he preaching before he was a Christian?
Plus,
Well,
if he's pursuing excellence, that honors God.
That's
God,
right.
and then also, the concept of trying to understand truth.
Mm-hmm.
So, all truth, I don't care whether it's Muslim truth or Indian truth or whatever, still truth. Truth is truth. So, and truth is God. So,
Dante may be kind of telescoping events here, because the Aeneid is all about the formation of Rome.
Mm-hmm.
Aeneas escapes Troy and becomes the father of Rome. Dante's time, Rome means the church.
Yeah.
So he may be squishing all this together.
Yeah. No, he is.
And making, what is his name, Statius?
Yeah.
Or Statius?
Statius, Statius,
Um,
Statius.
kind of making him the delivery system for
Mhm.
that
Yeah. Yeah, no, not me.
kind of compacted narrative.
Mm-hmm. Do you have something, Jim?
Yeah. I'm just thinking, a lost person's a lost person.
Mm-hmm.
The other part that I'm seeing here is a lost pastor. Say a pastor is not a Christian, but he's preaching. A man can get saved by hearing the word of God. It's just the word of God.
Yeah.
Hearing the spirit of God is saved, but he can do it through a donkey, or he can do it through a man.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they hear the word of God and become born again. Is that right?
Yeah. No. And I think it's kind of what David's getting at with truth being truth, right?
Yeah, the truth. That's what sets you
Um,
free.
yeah.
Not the person that's speaking,
Yeah.
being a Christian or not.
Mm-hmm.
Paul says something along that line, though, right? Because he talks about people presenting the gospel for money, but whether they're doing it with the right motives, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. I think it's in
Philippians.
Philippians, at the beginning of Philippians, or toward the end of chapter 1.
The gospel
Mhm.
being preached.
Regardless of the gospel being presented.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay. All right. Well, that's what I have for Canto 21. The point of this, again, is to, at the very least, in relation to how it's a liturgy of discipleship, is that, again, discipleship requires really that we lean on one another. I mean, obviously, not everyone is I would say you can make the argument that very few people are called to be hermits. That's not the usual in the Christian faith. Not saying it doesn't happen, but that's not the norm.
No.
And so we need one another in order to move forward. And regardless of whether or not they are Christian, unless they're just teaching just absolute insane heresy or just wrong anything, the Lord can use other means to inspire us. And I think this is what the image of Virgil's Aeneid inspiring Statius or Statius, or however you pronounce his name, into eventually coming into faith. Because the Aeneid is a beautiful work. And of course now for Romans, they would hold it higher above Homer probably to some degree, because it is about the founding of Rome. And I think even it may even make the point, and I could be wrong on this, so don't burn me at the stake over it, stealing your phrase. But I think they would make the argument that Rome is just Troy reincarnated. Because Aeneas escapes from Troy. But yeah. Anyway, so this is how it illustrates the liturgy of discipleship. All right, well, let's move into Canto 22 and discuss his conversion even more. He's going to hang out with us for a little bit longer. So this is the Terrace of the Gluttons. So this canto shows how both human art and natural wisdom can point beyond itself toward divine truth. This is kind of, again, an illustration of Virgil. So Statius explains that Virgil made him a poet and helped prepare him for Christianity. And so the canto then brings these pilgrims to the Terrace of Gluttony, where desire is trained through an unreachable tree and examples of temperance. So let's look at lines 64 to 75. This is going to start on page 473. He's going to explain even more how Virgil's work led him to come to faith. By this point, he knows that it's Virgil, because he says, "You were the lamp that led me from that night. You led me forth to drink Parnesian waters." I think I'm saying this right. "Then, on the road to God, you shed your light. When you declared a new birth has been given, justice returns in the first age of man, and a new progeny descends from heaven." 75. "You were the one who leads through a dark track, holding the light behind, useless to you, precious to those who followed your back. Through you I flowered to song and to belief. That you may know all, let me stretch my hand to paint in full what I have sketched in brief." And then he goes on and he explains in very great detail how this worked in him. But But again, he explains that Virgil's fourth book in the Aeneid helped turn his attention toward Christianity. No, excuse me, it's not. Oh, maybe it is. Sorry, my language looks weird on my notes. So anyway, but the poem itself speaks of not only, I'm curious if, yes, it speaks of a new age, but also, okay, I don't see it there. It speaks of a new age, but also it speaks of the birth of a child. So Virgil didn't intend to preach Christ, but Statius received those words as a light pointing beyond Virgil's own understanding. So he almost saw it as prophetic when he was reading it. So he says, you carried the lamp behind you, and that illuminated the road for those that followed, even though you're not going to benefit from the light yourself because you were holding it behind you. Any thoughts on that, comments on that, or do y'all feel like we explored that pretty well a minute ago?
I think we mentioned before that Paul quotes pagan poets in Acts as part of his sermon.
Yes, he does. Well, I think it's in Titus where he quotes a Cretan poet to kind of make fun of the Cretans a little bit, but he says, they're all, I forget what it is, what he
Slow bellies.
Yes. So
Bad company corrupts good.
yeah, and that's
There you go.
yeah. So yeah, and again, that points to David's comment about truth a moment ago, right? I mean, even these ancient philosophers got it sort of right, or at least they were heading in the right direction, right?
Is that quote from
From a Greek play.
Greek?
Mhm.
They don't have that play, they only have I think 15 plays inspired.
Mm.
Out of hundreds.
Mm.
But the whole concept of Greek plays was they were plays about pride, about hubris.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Everybody had to go see these plays, and if you could not afford it, the rich people had to buy two.
Mm.
And children had to come in, so they were really basically trying to teach the children that if you are prideful, this wasn't bad.
Mm.
It was moral instruction.
Yeah, it was
Mhm.
moral, yeah.
That's why their idea of comedy is just nobody dies.
No, but
Well, we have, what is it, Aristotle's, the book he wrote on tragedy, but there's no writing on comedy. The book is incomplete.
Well, really, they become a way of it's societal catechesis, right? You're
Yeah.
state's forcing you to go to it, but at the same time, it's setting in the same moral worldview and application. Yeah.
Which that, we know from the Bible says, what goes before a fall. Right.
before the song.
That's exactly what they're trying to teach.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the fall, let's look at the first tree in the examples of temperance. We'll read starting on page 476, so the very last page of the canto, and we'll start on line 139. It's about the middle of the page, and we'll read the rest of the canto. Actually, you know what? We'll start at the top of the page. But soon, in mid-road, there appeared a tree laden with fragrant and delicious fruit. And at that sight, the talk stopped instantly. As fir trees taper from limb to limb, so this tree tapered down, so shaped, I think, that it should be impossible to climb. But from that side, where the cliff closed off our way, a clear cadence fell from the towering rock and broke upon the upper leaves of spray. The poets drew nearer, reverent and mute. And from the center of the towering tree, a voice cried, "You shall not eat of the fruit." And then said, "Mary thought more of what was due the joy and honor of the wedding feast than of her mouth, which still speaks prayers for you. And of old, the mothers of Rome's noble blood found joy in water, and great wisdom came to holy Daniel in despising food. Bright as pure gold was mankind's state at first. Then hunger seasoned acorns with delight, and every rill rained sweet to honest thirst. No wine nor meat were in the wilderness, honey and locusts. That was nothing more that and nothing more nourished the Baptist in his holiness, and to the fact is his great glory due, as the gospel clearly testifies to you. So, again, this is on the terrace of gluttony. But while they're on the terrace of gluttony, they encounter a tree with really tasty-looking fruit. And water falls down on it, and its scent, and you know this when you just smell food cooking, it makes you hungry, right? Mouth starts to water, you get hungry. But the fruit remains beyond their reach. So the voices from the tree proclaim examples of temperance. So one of the examples of being Mary at Cana, which is there in lines 142 and 43 and 44. Also, Daniel refusing the king's food when he was in exile. We'll look at that here probably in a few weeks on Wednesday night. But you see what this is trying to do in relation to healing the sin of gluttony. It's saying, okay, you need to learn to temper your desire for food. But the tree doesn't teach that food is evil or that the body is evil. The fruit is beautiful, the water is refreshing, the fragrance is desirable. The problem is not that gluttony is not that the soul desires something bad, it's that the appetite has lost its proper order. Right? So you move from just enjoying food to being a glutton because you just consume too much. Right? And of course, you can obviously make other things a sin of gluttony, not just food, but that's the traditional sin, or the traditional medium. So the souls here, they encounter goodness without being permitted to seize it in order to heal their gluttony. So they see this really tasty tree and they can't reach out and take the fruit. They have to learn to see the thing that is good and want it, but also refuse to treat that immediate passion of wanting to just fill their belly because they're gluttons. Let me stop there and just see if y'all have any thoughts or comments or responses.
That's self-centeredness.
Mm-hmm.
It carries me back to the garden, not eating trees.
Mm-hmm.
Knowledge.
Yeah.
The garden, they ate it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So here they don't eat it, right?
Here they're not even allowed. They can't even reach it. It's just without. It's without reach. And he even mentions that it's tapered so that they can't even climb it. It's impossible to climb the tree. So that there's no way for them to get to this fruit. Yeah.
Can't sneak up in at night.
Do I?
Can't come out at night.
Can't come out at night. And what'd you say, Kate?
It's got flowers and fruit.
Yeah, it's
Confused.
it's meant to be beautiful and desirous to the eyes in order to eat and to make one more.
And a fruit to make.
Who
Yes.
just said photos of it?
That is generated on the internet.
Which is why it has flowers and fruit.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But the point here, though, is that temperance, as opposed to gluttony, temperance is not the hatred of pleasure, right? We don't have to hate the things that we enjoy, right? We can enjoy good food and good wine and good fellowship, but we can also abuse them by consuming too much of them. So the point, and turn them into an idol, exactly. So this is the freedom to see the thing that is good, but refuse to over-consume it and desire something that's better than that, to be dispassionate about it, to go back to the mystic retreats.
Good advice for all of us.
Mm.
Maybe this is an illustration of sin. Not that if you say good food is great, but I mean, we enjoy it. But sin tends to be excessive. I mean, the more I'm into it, the more I want to be into it. It grows. I think food is just a cautionary tale.
Yeah, it is. But you see, I mean, this is why we talk about like our besetting sins so much, right? You know, there's the sin that we definitely struggle with. Not that we may not struggle with a few, but you know, there are probably, I imagine all of us have at least one that we just really struggle with, and you get into it and you're like, I'm having a good time, man. You're just kind of, I just want to hang out here for a while. And
Covetous, that's really covetous.
Yeah. But this is sin desiring us, right? Like, how is it that the Lord what is it he says to Cain? Sin it.
Within your doors.
When you must master.
Mm-hmm. That's what's happening in this aspect of the purgatory, but in relation to our own discipleship and sanctification. This is what's happening. It's to be able to see the good, but desiring it wrongly turns it into sin. You need to master it. You need to take control of it. We'll actually talk about this some on Sunday, because in the Sermon on the Mount, we're at the texts on fasting. So this will come into play some in relation to that conversation. What's interesting here in relation to the Purgatorio and discipleship is that, and we didn't read this part, but on this terrace, the souls here circle this tree over and over again. So there's a repetition here, like there would be with liturgy. They have to always pass by this tree, smell the fruit, feel that hunger, see how it's good to the eyes, feel it, even notice the rain, and to see how refreshing this tree, the fruit of this tree really could be. But then they have to continue moving on. And so their bodies, their memories, their imaginations, they're all taught to control their appetite through obedience. So, anything else here?
Who were the three people?
So we
Red, white, and blue.
the blue would be Virgil, Dante's in red, and then this is Statius or Statius or so this is them.
If you're Italian, they say it's funny.
Yeah.
I tried to listen to it. Anyway.
I know I'm butchering these words.
No,
So.
no, you're fine.
Well, let's continue on with the gluttons and move into Canto 23. So here, this canto makes the effects of gluttony very visible in the emaciated bodies that they're going to come across. So this is what's in the image here. But their hunger is not degrading them permanently. So through prayer and restraint and grace, the distorted image of their humanity is being restored. So these are the ones having to pass by that tree that we just talked about in the last canto. They're having to see this and move on past the tree. So Dante, he hears as we get into this, and we'll read lines 1 to 15. As they make their way on around, he hears the gluttonous singing Psalm 51. So their mouths, which in life were distorted in sin through their appetites, now become instruments of prayer. And they pray this psalm, which is a penitential psalm. So they're not just hungry, they're confessing and they're praying and they're asking God to restore the proper use of their mouths and their stomachs, essentially. So let's read lines 1 to 15 real quick. It says, "In hope of seeing who had cried those words, I drew near and peered up." So he's referring to what we just heard coming out of the tree in the last canto. "I drew near and peered up at the green boughs, like one who wastes his lifetime stalking birds. And at that time, my more than father," so he's talking about Virgil, "said, 'My son, come now, for we must portion out more wisely the time allotted to us.' And he moved on. And I looked down and turned round to join those sages in the same instant. And their talk was such that every step I took paid double wages. And then suddenly, at my back, I heard the strain of Labia Me Domine," so sung, or again, "Oh Lord, open my lips, and my mouth will declare your praise." So sung that it was both a hymn and a cry of pain. "Father," I said, "what is this sound?" And he, "Spirits circling so loosen perhaps the knot of death they owe eternity." So, again, they're singing here the opening lines of Psalm 51, which is really apt for this terrace, because again, their mouths are now being sanctified from what they use them for in life. So their appetite is not just being silenced or redeemed; it's redirected toward worship, which is what happens when we fast, right? So we intentionally deny ourselves food in fasting for the purpose of identifying more with Christ and for worship. Again, we'll talk about this in some detail on Sunday. But thoughts on that? Otherwise, we'll move on to another reading.
Hamburgers will be served after service.
Yes, hamburgers will be served after the service. Let's do a sermon on fasting and then have a potluck lunch.
Oh, man.
That actually would be funny. But,
Typically American.
yeah.
You may want to touch on this anyway, but these are souls. They're shades,
Mhm.
as they call themselves in the book. So they're not going to starve to death.
Mm-mm.
They don't have any need to eat.
No.
So if they want to eat, it's just for its own sake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very good.
That's a good point. I mean, you're right. They are dead. They don't have a need to eat, but they would eat because they just want to eat to eat.
Just want to eat.
Yeah. Which is, for a lot of people that really struggle with eating disorders in the way of putting on too much weight. That's the problem that they struggle with, right? Is I eat because I'm bored, or I eat because I'm sad, or I eat because I don't have anybody to talk to, so I just eat.
Or you're anxious.
Or you're anxious. Yeah, yeah. Eating is your comfort to handle whatever you're struggling with, and that's a legitimate struggle for people. Yeah.
Sure.
But there's lots of sins that you could get caught up in that.
Yeah.
So, as a comfort and escape.
Yeah. Well, you see how just gluttony can become your besetting sin in that case, right? Other people might use other sins to
Right.
help.
Releasing the same kind of frustration.
Yeah, yeah. I know someone that used to struggle with it, and does it now primarily because they had to undergo just surgery to stop them from eating so much, and that was weirdly enough a grace really given to them to just say the surgery exists so that way you won't be as much of a glutton. But they always described it as I'm being intentionally vague. I'm not. This is not a gender neutral person by any means. But anyway, that's not the point. I'm being intentionally vague. But this person described it as it was a dopamine hit, like it would be anything else. Like this is the problem people have with like certain devices or other sins. It's a dopamine hit in the brain, and so I would eat candy bars in order to feel better. I would keep them stashed around the house so my family wouldn't know about it in order to feel better. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a snickeraholic.
A snickeraholic, yeah.
Easy to become a snickeraholic.
Yeah. We're going to pick up right where we left off on page 482 and line 16, and we're going to read a bigger chunk. We're going to go all the way to line 55. But Dante, because Dante's going to meet a friend, as he does in a new number of these terraces. He meets a friend named Forci Donati. I believe I'm saying this correct. But he struggles initially to recognize him because these souls are emaciated, because this is the sin that's being healed in them. Their gluttony's being healed. And so we see him coming across him starting in line 16. He says, as pilgrims wrapped in holy meditation, when they encounter strangers on the way, look, but do not pause for conversation. So from behind us, turning half about to stare as they went by, a band of souls came up and passed us, silent and devout. The sockets of their eyes were caves agape, their faces death pale, and their skin so wasted that nothing but the gnarled bones gave it shape. Here's a word I'm not going to be able to pronounce, so you guys help me with this. I doubt that even... What is it, Craig?
What line?
25, line 25. Erixathon? Yes, I doubt that even Erixathon's skin, even when he most feared that he would starve, had drawn so tight to bone or worn so thin. Behold, I thought, although I do not speak, the face of those who lost Jerusalem when Miriam ripped her son with her own beak. Their eye pits look like gem rims, minus gem. Those who read OMO in the face of man, or OMO, in the face of man, would easily have recognized the M. Who could imagine, without knowing how, craving could waste souls, so at the mere smell of water and fruit upon the bough? I was still wondering how they could have grown so thin and scabby, since what famished them had not yet been made clear to me, when one, turning his eyes from the deep inside his skull, stared at me fixedly and then cried aloud, "How have I earned a grace so bountiful? I never would have recognized his face, but in his voice I found that which his features had eaten from themselves without a trace. That spark relit my memory, and in all I understood beneath those altered features it was Forsyth's very self I saw. Oh, do not stare, he pleaded, at my hide, bleached like a leper's by these flaming scabs, nor at the fleshless bones I bear inside. But tell me about yourself, and who, these two souls that bear you company, and tell of me with all haste, I beg of you. I'm going to read more. 55. Okay, we'll stop there. Because the conversation continues. So again, these souls, I mean, they're so emaciated that they appear, they're less than human. I mean, they look like something out of a nightmare, right?
Yeah.
But the point is not that their humanity's been erased, right? The point is that their appetites were disordered, and it's showing what it had done to their humanity. So again, they're being purged of this.
There's a picture on he's eating his arm.
Oh, that's pretty rough. Erythithons.
Oh, who was he? Oh,
He's
no.
eating his arm.
Oh, he is in that picture?
He mocked. Oh, where are you going?
Just go ahead and read it.
Oh, okay. There's a note on page 486 about him. It says, Eryxithons mocked the goddess Ceres by felling an oak tree in her sacred grove, and she visited an insatiable hunger upon him. So he ate up his own substance, sold his daughter in order to buy more food, consumed that, and then finally devoured his own limbs.
Hard to eat your cereal without
Typical
it.
Greek men.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
line are you reading on?
I'm on page 486. I'm reading the note on Eryxithon, which is from line 25. It's from Ovid's Metamorphosis. So
What did he eat first?
I guess just everything he owned, and
I'm
then
talking about his body.
his limbs. So I don't know which one he started with.
Ate his tongue
In the
first.
picture, it looked like
Yeah,
You gotta with your hands, if you eat your hands, you can't grab hold of some stuff.
yeah. So he probably started with his feet. But he's the archetype of gluttony.
Oh, is he?
So yeah.
And this, one of these guys, he says, but tell me of yourself, or that's the skinny guy talking
To Dante. Yeah.
to Dante.
Mhm.
I would say he's pretty far along on the road of sanctification.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because usually we're interested in telling our own story.
Exactly.
Listening to someone.
Yeah. That has been the illustration that Dante's given us with most of these souls that he's seen. Not all of them, but a good number of them, where they are, and we saw some of this last week, and I know you guys were out, but where you may have like an artist that his sin was pride, but now instead he's saying, well, this artist is better than me. Go look at his work. So you're seeing that healing in their soul of saying, well, I no longer desire to just be praised for my own self. I want to point beyond myself to somebody else. And it's the same thing here. His concern is, I want to know more about you. And of course, he recognizes Dante, and I imagine, if I can recall, he probably asked him to go ask somebody to pray for him to boost him on out a little quicker. But
Well, weren't the people were the shades in hell, like always, so happy that they're remembered and he recognizes them, or they asked him to remind people about him when Dante gets back to Earth.
yeah, they're concerned. So it's really twofold in Inferno. Either the souls don't want to be remembered at all because of their shame, or they want to be remembered for themselves and for their own pride, right? So go and make sure my name is remembered by so and so, and make sure I'm remembered by this. In this case, it's like, hey, could you go and ask my niece to pray for me, and that's really about it. Yeah. Anything else here on? We are going to read a little bit more in this canto before moving on. All right. Well, let's move on. We're actually going to stick around with Forest, not 4C. It's Forest. I was just reading it wrong. He explains that his progress has been hastened by the prayers of his wife. So he says here, starting in line 76. So skip on over to page 484. starting in that second tercet. And I to him, for as from the day in which you changed worlds, or died, for the better life, less than 5 years, as yet have passed away. If your ability to sin had fled before the hour of that sublime sweet sorrow that weds us back to God among the blessed, how have you reached so high in the great climb? I thought to find you still below, with those who sit and wait, repaying time for time. And my Nella's flood of tears, he answered me, have borne me up so soon, and let me drink the blessed wormwood of my agony. Her sighs and prayers were heard where love abounds. They raised me from the slope where I lay waiting, and set me free of all other rounds. The dearer and more pleasing in God's sight is the poor widow of my love, as she is most alone in doing what is right. For the Barbagia and Sardinia breeds chaste women as compared to that Barbagia which I left her to widow's weeds. So basically what he's saying is, again, here you're seeing obviously the Catholic understanding of the prayers of the faithful will help the church in purgation make its way through purgatory. This is an illustration of this, but it is interesting that at least we get a more explicit picture of it here, but it's interesting that he's saying, my wife has been praying for me since I died 5 years ago, and I was able to skip every other part of purgatory and come straight to this terrace. And this is where I'm going to be for a while, but it is moving me along faster. So, the point that I think we could take from this in relation to it as Protestants is again, we don't do this alone. We need to pray for each other. So if we know we're struggling with sin, or we know one another struggling with a particular sin, then pray for each other. Right? That's really the illustration I think we can take from this. You want to become more sanctified before death, then confess your sins to one another and pray for one another. That would be the thing I would take from that. Now, if you want to talk more about the purgatory aspect, we can, but this is what I would take from it. You got something, Jim? Look like you want to say something. And if not, that's fine. Okay.
I have no sin to deal with myself. But I'm thinking how careful we have to be with a friend or a brother or sister who has a problem. Did you know that problem? You've seen it. It's very obvious. And it's hurting. But you hurt them if you mention it in the wrong way.
Yeah.
So that the Holy Spirit showed them. And I'm learning that. It would get me in trouble.
Yeah.
And it's the work of God. It's not something that we can do. There's other times where you might point something to a friend. This might be better if you thought about it this way. There are times where I feel like there's no word. It's just prayer.
Yeah.
Is the only answer. That's
Yeah.
what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, we have I'm sure, I don't know if this is just a guy trait or if it's a trait just amongst our personality types, but I know I have a tendency to want to try to fix the problem, right? So you've shared something.
Those women.
Well, it may just be a personality type then, right? So you tell me a problem, I want to say, well, have you tried X, Y, and Z?
Yeah.
And really the right approach more often than not ought to be, don't say anything. Don't be like Job's friends.
Yeah.
Keep your mouth shut.
That's it.
Just listen
And
and
speak when you feel the Lord leading you to speak, but otherwise it might just be better. Unless, you have that kind of relationship with somebody and you can say, is this a problem you want me to help fix, or is this a problem you just want to complain about? And sometimes there's just wisdom in that.
Yeah. Sometimes that's what we want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes the best thing you can do with someone who's hurting, just sit down beside them and put your arm over. That's true.
Yep.
It's like that, too. Yeah. Weep with those that weep.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Weep with those that weep.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, then let's move on to Canto 24.
Purgation.
So let me move my big head so you can see. All right, we're still in the gluttons, and then I think we'll move after this one to the terrace of lust. Whew. All right, so this continues healing gluttony. This time through 2 trees, but it also turns toward poetry. Dante meets, here's a name I will not be able to pronounce. Let's see if it's up here. Yes, right there at the very top. Anybody want to take a guess?
Bonagiunta.
Bonagiunta. Thank you. I'm gonna go with
Give it
it.
a shot anyway.
Well, that's way better than what my attempt would have been. So Bonagiunta. Thank you.
Tongue in.
So this canto suggests that artistic creation, like bodily desire, needs to be purified so that it follows love truthfully rather than using beauty for self-display. So we'll look at this a little bit. So the 2 trees and the training of appetite. So the souls move, again, continually between these 2 trees whose fruit and fragrance awaken their desire but is inaccessible. So this is now the second tree. The other tree was the one we saw 2 cantos ago. This tree is meant to be the tree of knowledge from Eden. So let's skip over to lines 106, starting in line 106, which is on page 493, and through line 117. So just a few terses. Sometimes, when greedy children beg and screech for what they may not have, the one they cry to holds it in plain sight but beyond their reach. We are experiencing this in real time in our home right now.
I want those keys.
Oh, man. He's a lot of fun. Holds it in plain sight but beyond their reach to whet their appetites. So, round that tree with arms raised to the boughs, a pack of souls begged and was given nothing. Finally, they gave up and moved on unsatisfied. And as we drew close in our turn to that plant at which such tears and pleadings were denied, pass on, do not draw near. The tree whose fruit Eve took and ate grows further up the slope, and this plant sprouted from that evil root. So this is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Again, they are repeatedly experiencing the desire but not able to possess it. They're learning that their desire needs to be acknowledged, but not being able to feed it. Right? So again, we're going to look at this in fasting on Sunday even more. I'm not trying to shortchange our notes. I'm just saying this theme is going to come out when we look at fasting. You can really see how a lot of the Sermon on the Mount really influences a good bit of this work. Right? So the souls, let's see, the tree turns appetite into memory and instruction. So these souls remember the original sin in Eden, but they hear examples of temperance and experience bodily hunger all at once. And so the whole person here ends up being addressed. And we see this again with the examples of just a couple cantos ago with the other tree. They smell the fruit, they feel the hunger, their memory recalls the examples of Mary and of Daniel, and they have to practice restraint. So they're learning to do in death what they didn't do in life. They're trying to bring that hunger under control and that impulse under control.
Whether it's wise, if you're dealing with artistic people, it's wise to acknowledge that your artistry comes from gifts from God.
Mm-hmm.
That you didn't come up with it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you might work at it to make it better, but it's really, it's all about what He has somehow gifted you with before you were born. It's hard to get young people when you're trying to teach them that, because they like the ego-ness of it.
Yeah.
The applause.
Mm-hmm.
When people say, well, how wonderful you are, what a great talent you've got.
Yeah.
It's hard to let go of that and say, well, it's a piece of thank God.
Mm-hmm. Well, to the point of artistry, let's look at that. This will be the next thing. Say that name again for me, Walton. Bonagiunta? Bonagiunta.
I would say.
See, like I want to pronounce a hard G,
You have to
and I
say
know
it
it's
like-
wrong.
It could be a hard G, though. It could be.
You have to say it like you're from Italy.
Bona.
Just call it Bona.
Call her Bona. All right. Bona de Luca.
Is it a woman?
Bona de Luca, who was a poet associated with earlier poetic tradition. She recognizes something different in Dante's poetry. Dante writes as love speaks from within him, and his words flow in that inward movement. So okay. She recognizes poetry. So let's look at line 40, and we'll read to line 63. So this is on page 490 into 491, so we're backing up a little bit. Spirit, I said, since you seem so intent on talking to me, do so audibly, and speaking so, make both of us content. Though men may mock my city, he replied, she who will teach you how to treasure it is born there, though she is not yet a bride. This presage. Did I say that right? Presage. You will take this presage. You shall take with you from here, and if you misconstrued what I first muttered, the facts themselves in time will make it clear. I say 63. But this is really the creator of those new canzoni, one of which begins, ladies who have the intellect of love. And I, when love inspires me with delight or pain or longing, I take careful note, and as he dictates in my soul, I write. And he, oh brother, now that I see the thong that held the guillotine, I'm not saying that right, the guillotine, Gattone?
What line are you on?
I'm on line 56, the middle of page 491. Gattone and the judge and me, short of that sweet new style of purest song. I see well how your pens attain such powers by following exactly love's dictation, which certainly could not be said of ours. And if one scan the two styles side by side, that is the only difference he will find. And with that, he fell still, as if satisfied. I called this a woman, this is a man, excuse me. So, the point of bringing this person up is that I believe I'm saying this right, is his recognition is not just a moment of literary history. It belongs in this terrace because poetry or our art can become a form of appetite. And I think this is what Dante is trying to illustrate. This isn't pride, this is gluttony. So a poet, and this sounds like pride, I mean, you can see how these sins could be a little twisted together. A poet or an artist could hunger for reputation or novelty or praise, and this is exactly what you were just saying. But Dante describes his own poetry. The irony here isn't lost on me that he considers himself the third greatest poet ever in the Inferno. But he describes his own poetry as responsive rather than grasping. So maybe at this point he's learning to reorder his love, right? He listens to love.
Third.
Yeah.
Didn't say it was the greatest.
Yeah, he put himself in. But he listens to these loves, and then he writes what love dictates. So in other words, he says that the poet doesn't consume beauty for the sake of his own glory. He takes in this beauty and then points toward something that's greater than himself. This is what true artistry is meant to do. It's supposed to see the beauty and then illustrate it however their medium is, and then turn it outward in order to point beyond themselves. I'll let the artists in the room talk right now if they want to. We have a few.
I would say a lot of this is hard to take for a lot of people. The bow at the end of a play. Most people go into it thinking, okay, the play's over, I come out, and I take this bow, everybody loves me, and they're clapping, they're applauding, they're standing ovation, and you are just sucking it all in. In reality, where it came about in the time of the Greeks, the actors were slaves.
Yeah.
They were owned by some rich guy, okay? And so when they get at the end of their play, they are bowing before him and his friends, saying, "Thank you for allowing me to be able to do this for you. Thank you for allowing me to be able to express my love for the audience." So it's the opposite of what most people think. It's the opposite.
Yeah.
And if you can learn that, really apply it and realize that, man, at the end of the play, when you're bowing to people saying, "I thank you for spending money to come and see what I have been a part of."
Yeah.
Instead of ego. I think that's what we're trying to get at a little bit. And we completely reversed the definition of curb call.
Yeah, yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, say one thing this reminds me of, just connecting it to the notion of gluttony,
Mm-hmm.
is a phrase that, I mean, and I've heard this so many times, it's my engagement with the art world, so to speak. You ask an artist, well, what's your greatest work? And they'll say, it's the next one.
Mm-hmm.
And this sense,
They'll say what?
they'll say it's the next
The
one.
next one I think to do.
You spend all this time on a piece and you're talking about it, and you just throw yourself into it, and then you're done. And as a friend once told me in grad school, he said, and then it's emptiness.
Mm-hmm.
It ends. And you desire the next one. And it's a desire that can never be filled. It's
Mhm.
never satisfying. And so that just reminds me a little bit of
Yeah.
connecting it to the idea of gluttony.
Mm-hmm.
Just this insatiable desire for more.
The next thing, yeah. That's a good illustration of this too. Thank you for that. To your point, there's a song by a band called Cake. They were popular when I was in college, but they have a song called Opera Singer, and the whole point of the song is that this singer is just really impressed with his own ability, right? And he comes out and he talks about how he comes out on stage and there's painted tape for him to stand on, and how he can bow and throw his cape to people and take the praise into people. It's this illustrated in a song. Now I don't know if that's what they were going for, but it's a perfect illustration of this too.
Yeah,
Well,
there's also.
For so long in the theater, it would be, say, a scene between two people.
Mm-hmm.
If it were you and I'm talking to the audience. I'm giving my lines, how wonderfully
Yeah.
I'm giving my lines
Yeah,
to the audience, and then I get through with my line and I look back at you, and it's your turn to try to be. So I mean, there's not a connection, relationship that between the two people that is the story of the play. It's how wonderful my voice is.
Yeah.
How wonderful how I can make the audience really think
Yeah.
that I'm something special.
Yeah.
And so I'm just third,
Mhm.
at least second.
But in theater, it's the same thing. You finish up with a play, and then you kind of feel empty, and you can hardly wait. It's got to be the next one.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
There's also this trope about the starving artist, the one who pours everything into whatever he's doing just for the love of it, never makes it anywhere. So when you are in the arts and you come to be known and celebrated, then you can become a diva. And we've got this phrase that he loves to hear the sound of his own voice. It can become like that.
Yeah.
Which is,
What's that?
it's part pride too. But you could call it being a glutton for approval
Yeah.
and praise.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the way entertainment goes, 10% of the entertainers make 90% of the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other 90% of the entertainers make 10% of the money.
Yeah.
Well, and you hear a lot, and this is mostly in performance arts, about people who are just broken, or they actually have stage fright, or they're incredibly, like cripplingly shy. But they have to have approval. They have to get approval from somewhere because they're so weak within themselves, and they use the audience for that. And once clapping stops, then they go back to their brokenness.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you kind of, this is not to go off on too much of a rabbit trail, but you hear this about certain performers that have taken their own lives, like Robin Williams or I think Chris Farley medicated it through drugs. It was just this, like, yeah, when you're performing, you're able to kind of set that aside and put on that front, and then they couldn't handle not life outside of that.
But it's a process too. You have to learn some of the process, and not necessarily the finished product. Because the finished product, like you say, you'll find flaws in it.
Yeah.
You think, well, next time I'll have somebody but I have to learn to love the getting there is much more significant and important than the finish.
Yeah.
And that's what builds community within the play, where everybody's working together, whatever it may be, to do this, to make this the best possible thing that they can make.
Yeah.
So it comes out of humility,
Yeah.
not out of arrogance.
Yeah.
And that's what I think he's really dealing with here.
Yeah.
Gluttony can create arrogance. I don't know what the guy that holds that record for eating so many hot dogs in 30-minute time, or whatever it is, you know, how he walks away thinking,
Yeah.
no one can eat as many hot dogs as me.
If you need a real life example to watch in real time, it's watching the hot dog eating contest right here.
They voted him so fast.
Oh man.
Well, they're watching, people are watching it all over the planet.
Yeah.
You know, so-
I know. No, I'm good.
Millions of people are
I'm
watching.
good.
And this guy, I think the guy that does, he's won it like 4 or 5 years in a row.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Well, how big is he? He's probably not big.
No, he
These
just,
guys are.
I guess he just, I don't know what they do in preparation.
Take a laxative.
All right. Well, let's move on to Canto 25. This one is a bit of a philosophical discussion, a theological explanation of what it means to be human. So Statius, he explains the development of the body, the creation of the rational soul, and the way the soul forms a visible shade after death. So what this canto does is it reinforces that purgatory heals the whole person and not just a collection of disconnected parts. Right. So the purpose of sanctification is to heal us to be in the image of Christ. Right. So Dante is obviously struck by the emaciated souls that he sees, especially in the fact that, so what you were bringing up, Walton, or Craig, may have been Craig, sorry, they're dead. It's not like they can actually eat and satisfy their hunger. It's just the fact that they're wanting to. But this really affects Dante. And so we're going to go to line 61, which is on page 502. So Statius responds with an account of human generation and the soul's formation. So this gets a little philosophical, but he says, starting in line 61, and we'll go to 75. But how this animal thing grows human powers you do not yet see, and this very point has led astray a wiser head than yours. By him, the possible intellect was thought, since it occupied no organ, to be disjoined from the vegetative soul, and so he taught. Open your heart to the truth, I shall explain, and know that at the instant articulation has been perfected in the fetal brain. Okay, fetal. Okay.
That's the British way to say it.
The British way. Okay. All right. I knew it without the O. So the fetal brain. That instant, the first mover turns to it, and there, rejoicing at such art and nature, breathes into it a new and powerful spirit. All that is active there, the spirit draws into itself, forming a single soul that lives and feels and measures its own cause. So he goes on like this for a bit, but he describes how we develop bodily, but also increasingly receiving complex powers, right? So, I mean, as we're formed in the womb, obviously things start to come online. It's really fascinating to see how this happens when, you go through your wife being pregnant, or you being pregnant, right? You being pregnant. But also, do I?
I have not.
No, I was looking beyond to your wife. But his point is that the rational soul is not just the final product of physical development. He's saying it's given to us directly by God, like he's breathing that spirit into us. So he's really calling back to the creation of Adam to some degree. And so once present, though, he's saying it gathers the lower powers into one living human soul. This is all kinds of great philosophical, the soul and stuff. But what Dante is doing is he's insisting on the unity of the person. So we don't possess three separate souls, right? We don't possess one for growth, one for sensation, and one for reason. And it actually returns us to a point introduced all the way back in Canto 4. But it now becomes essential for understanding the terraces of appetite. And it's that we are one person that's being healed and formed into the image of Christ. This is what he's getting at. So, and that means that our discipleship and our sanctification needs to involve our whole being, not just our spirits and not just our bodies, both, because we are embodied creatures. Right? So we're not Gnostics. Our sanctification must involve our whole selves. That's what he's getting at. So.
A lot of people do that though. They do, when they have certain abilities, whatever, they put this in this box and this one in that box, and so I am this right now.
Mm-hmm.
So you're still one person.
Yeah.
So, whether you want to divide yourself up.
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine it's probably natural for a lot of us to try to compartmentalize some things because it helps us to make more sense of it. But yeah.
It happens to a lot of people.
Yeah.
It happens to all of us at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know anything about this Averroes guy?
Where are we at?
Well, the wiser heads and yours apparently is according to the footnote, is a reference to Averroes.
Averroes.
63.
That's in page 507. The note for 64 through 66, actually.
Okay.
And he seems to be a heretic, but I've never heard of him.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no idea what point he was. What date.
The scholastics would have been the Middle Ages.
Where did you say that?
Page 507.
Paragraph?
It's on the notes for lines 64 to 66. So the 4 paragraphs in the bottom, working down.
The gist of it is, it seems to be that what separates man from the animals is he can reason from the known to the unknown. But this guy, Averroes, was trying to appoint that to a bodily organ, which he could not figure out. So it says there, therefore, no individual and rational soul could be summoned to eternal judgment, since the soul would have lost its possible intellect at death, which would, be a heresy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Averroes was an Arab scholar in the Middle Ages.
Okay.
He was a Muslim.
He was a Muslim. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Dante's doctrine of error. One must understand that in scholastic teaching the soul. Okay. All right. Well, then there you go. I didn't know that. Walter knew that.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Good.
So he is a heretic.
Yeah.
Katie's note said he lived in Cordoba, Spain, but they were lousy with Muslims during that time. in
Yeah.
Spain.
Yeah.
He died in
So this,
Morocco, Marrakesh.
so this was before LC.
I don't even know this.
Morocco celebrated keeping the Spanish out, and then Spain
Yeah.
celebrated keeping the Muslims out. It was like, they could have just stopped it and never done it. They were going to one side or the other. Saved a lot of lives. So.
Yeah. All right. Moving on, we're going to look at lines 91 to 105. So Statius explains that after death, the soul impresses its own form upon the surrounding air. This is how he's explaining. Here's how you're seeing these shapes. Right. This is what he's doing. So line 91 to 105, he says, then as the air after rain will glow inside itself, reflecting an outer ray, and clothe itself in many colors, so wherever the soul may stop in its new hour, the air about it takes on that soul's image. Such is the virtue of the formative power. Thereafter, in the same way one may see flame follow fire wherever it may shift, the new form follows the soul eternally. From air it draws its visibility. Hence, It is called a shade, and out of air it forms the organs of sight, speech, and every sense. Thus we are able to speak and laugh, and thus we are able to weep such tears and breathe such sighs as you have seen and heard passing among us. And then he goes on to explain more. We won't finish the canto, but so what he's stressing here is again what Dante is able to see is that the inward condition of their soul at death becomes outwardly visible. So this is why these souls are emaciated in the terrace of gluttony, because this was the inner condition of their soul. And it's, as their soul is being healed, it's obviously changing, but at the same time, like, this is what is expressed in real time that Dante's able to visually see. That's what it's getting at. Yeah. So this really is just a kind of a deviation to explain, okay, how in the world is Dante able to see these shades, right? This is what this is doing.
It's like an aura.
Yeah. All right.
Which I think we all have.
An aura. All right, Canto 26. Let's move on to lust. Okay. Let's get real comfortable. So this again here in this terrace, and this is the final terrace before he gets to Eden. So he's going to be looking at lust, but it also is the same terrace that has purifying fire within it toward the end. So the issue here is not simply the object of desire, but desire's movement away from the order of something's telos, right? So this is what we're looking at when we're looking at lust in the Sermon on the Mount, right? You're using an object for your own desire. So you're removing it, particularly a person, from the fact that they had been created in the image of God. You're removing from them their purpose, their reason, their nature, all for your own use. This is what lust does. And so the fire that he comes to doesn't annihilate love. It purifies erotic desire so that you can begin to actually see the purpose of something again, right? This is how it's being healed. So Dante in this terrace sees two groups of souls moving through basically a wall of fire. That looks like the Great Wall of China with fire on either side. But they're moving in opposite directions. So they exchange. It's a little weird, but they exchange brief kisses, and then they cry out examples identifying the forms that their lust had taken. So one group named Sodom and Gomorrah. So you understand what that sin is, right?
Yes.
The other, and I'm trying to see if it's up here for some help with. I do have it on your handout. On that second line, Pasiphae maybe? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Pasiphae.
Yes. So that's the other one. So the other name's Pasiphae, whose desire crossed the boundary between human and animal. So not just homosexual sin, but bestiality, right? So let's look at lines 31 to 42. So starting on page 511. Actually, it'll go all the way to the bottom, page 511. So about midway through. I saw them hurrying from either side, and each shade kissed another without pausing, each by the briefest greeting satisfied. Ants in their dark ranks meet exactly so, rubbing each other's noses to ask perhaps what luck they've had or which way they should go. And as soon as they break off their friendly greeting, before they take the first step to pass on, each shade shouts the other at that meeting, Sodom and Gomorrah, the new souls cry. And the others, Pasiphae, or bestiality, enters the cow to call the young bull to her lechery. So what Dante's doing here is he places all kinds of lust on the same terrace. So it's not just, I have lust for one thing, like,
But I'm not as bad as that guy.
But I'm not as bad as that guy. It's your lust is all in the same terrace. Which differs from what we saw in Inferno, because he does put different forms of sexual sin in different circles of hell. So here the issue is, again, what we talked about when we looked at this in Matthew 5. It's what lust has done to desire. It's what it's done to our loves. both groups here in Purgatory and in Inferno allowed their sexual desires to depart from the telos of the thing they were lusting after, but the example of bestiality makes that disorder extremely vivid. But lust can become dehumanizing when our appetites no longer serve the proper purpose. Right? So, and it forgets what something is for. This brief kiss is also interesting, but they're not purified by refusing all contact or affection. Their greeting becomes restrained and fraternal and communal rather than possessive. So they greet one another with a holy kiss, essentially, and they say, "This is the sin that is being purified in me." Sodom and Gomorrah, Pasiphae. And so basically, they're being forced to openly admit their sin as they're being purified of it. Even though they all know that they're on the terrace of lust, it was, well, mine was homosexuality, mine was bestiality, mine was this.
I think, I don't know which animal it is, but I'm thinking maybe the llamas are natural carriers of syphilis.
Mm.
So how did syphilis get into
Yeah.
humankind?
Instead of bestiality, yeah.
In the late 1400s in Florence, it was very widespread. These little boy prostitutes.
Mm-hmm.
This was one of Savonarola's reforms, which lasted for 3 years, and then people got tired of it and wanted their sin back.
I think I remember you talking about this.
It was very open sin,
Mm-hmm.
apparently, that people pursued.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised to see these people in Purgatory.
Mm-hmm.
It may be that this is lust, so these may have been desires that were never acted upon.
Yeah.
It still needed purification.
Yeah, yeah. And it could be that as well.
Maybe this is what the apostle was getting at with greet each other with a holy kiss. I mean, this is not lust.
Yeah,
This is a holy kiss.
yeah,
Keep
yeah,
the word holy in there.
yeah,
Huh?
Gotta keep that word holy in
Yeah,
there.
that's
Well,
right.
yeah.
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 Well, you go to Ethiopia, and the greeting is,
Yeah, it's a great greeting.
Mhm.
Yes, it is.
way different than we have it here.
Yeah. Because we're coming up on time, let's go ahead and skip to Canto 27 because I want us to get here because it does take us to the doorway into Eden, which is the top of Purgatory.
It is interesting, though. It goes on and on about sloth and on about gluttony, and there's just a few verses on lust.
Yeah, yeah. You almost wonder too, though, 'cause and maybe the point of it is that maybe just Dante, as much as we know he was married, we know that he has this desire for Beatrice, but it has been changed throughout this, and we'll see it in this canto. Maybe he just didn't struggle with lust like some others did, and that could be why he didn't write a lot on it. I mean, because I would imagine we all also have those sins where we know somebody that struggles with it, and we're like, why is that a problem for you? Well, it's not a problem for me. Why is that a problem for you? And it's hard to relate to that person, which is why we probably can relate to one another better when we realize and confess our sins together and realize, I struggle with that, let's hold each other accountable.
A lot of people say what the preacher is preaching against is his problem.
Yeah, yeah. So let's move on. Let's look at this last one real quick. So this completes the purgation of the terraces. But Dante has to pass through this wall of fire. But he's afraid. Because he has to step through fire. So you understand, right? We can. But Virgil.
You need Daniel here.
Do what?
You need Daniel here.
Yeah. Virgil speaks Beatrice's name. This is, again, I'm going to bring up Beatrice. And it's humorous because he reminds him that Beatrice is on the other side. And so he finds his courage and goes through the wall. After which the final P that he's had on his forehead is removed. And Virgil then declares Dante is actually higher than himself now because his desires have been reordered. And Virgil can't go any further than this. He can't go past this wall. So let's look at Dante refuse the fire real quick because this is important and interesting here. So line 31, starting on 520. This is Virgil talking. He says, "My turn here with whole assurance. Put by your fears and enter to your peace. and I stood fixed at war within my own conscience. And seeing me still stubborn, rooted fast, he said, a little troubled, "Think, my son, you shall see Beatrice when this wall is passed." As Pyramus, but one breath from the dead, Pyramus, thank you. One breath from the dead opened his eyes when he heard Thisbe's name. Thank you. I'm awful with this, guys. I read them in my head so differently than the way they're actually pronounced. And looked at her when the mulberry turned red. Just so my hard paralysis melted from me, and I turned to my leader at that name, which dwells forever in my memory. At which he wagged his head, as at a child won over by an apple. And then he said, "Well, then, what are we waiting for?" and smiled. He turned then and went first into the fire. Excuse me, I was wrong. He does pass through the fire. Requesting Statius, who, for some time now, had walked between us to bring up the rear. 45. Then smiled. Okay. Went on and read a little further on. But anyway. So, again, he's gone through every terrace, but now he gets here and he cannot. He's just terrified to go through this fire. But part of it is that he's gotten all the information he can have. At some point, he has to actually lean into the discipleship that he's gone through and have faith and go through it. And so Virgil invokes Beatrice, and the thought of her gives him the desire to actually set aside his fears and move on. That's all I really have for that. It's important to see him have this fear and not want to move through the fire. But I have one more reading to do, and then I'll be done. But I want y'all to talk if you've got something you want to share real quick. What you got?
Just one point, question. He's about to get into heaven, right? You would think he would have Jesus on his mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I think
you would love so much.
Yeah.
We want to see Jesus.
And I'm trying to remember, so she becomes a stand-in for one of the Christian virtues. So it's not just his romantic love for her. Like at this point, that's still sort of there, but it's being set aside because it's also, her name means something, and I forget what it was, and I'll look it up for next time we meet. So she becomes a stand-in as well for something heavenly, not just
Lovely.
but she's, yeah.
But Jesus himself might be the fire right there. That's what he does with us.
That purifying fire. Mm-hmm.
To melt us down.
So he moves through the fire, but as he does, the angel removes the final P. We're actually backing up in line 7. Excuse me, is that right, or I may have my lines wrong here? We do see the angel, God's glad angel standing there on line 6. This is page 519, and on the rocky ledge beyond the reach of the fire, the caroling Beati Mundo Corde, which is blessed are the pure in heart, and a voice to which no mortal could aspire. And then, blessed ones, till by flame purified, no soul may pass this point, enter the fire and heed the singing from the other side. So the point here is that this is the point of what Purgatory is meant to do. It's meant to get us to the point where our hearts are purified, our souls are purified. So, and it's a real-time example of that beatitude now coming to fruition in the disciple's soul. Sorry, I was wrong. I have one more, and this really won't take long. I'm going to skip over one more place. 127, line 530, page 523, line 127. This is now they're at the edge of Eden. So Virgil tells Dante that he has led him as far as human reason can take him. But Dante's will is now upright, free, and whole, and Virgil declares, I crown and mitre you sovereign of yourself, which is just interesting. But he says this, bottom of page 523, my son, you now have seen the torment of temporal and eternal fires. Here now is the limit of my discernment. So again, my human reason can't go any further than this. This is as far as I can go. I have led you here by grace of mind and art. Now let your own good pleasure be your guide. You are past the steep ways past the narrow part. See there the sun that shines upon your brow, the sweet new grass, the flowers, the fruited vines, which spring up without need of seed or plow, until those eyes come gladdened, which in pain moved me to come to you and lead your way. Sit there at ease and wander through the plain. Expect no more of me in word or deed. Here your will is upright, free, and whole, and you would be in error not to heed. Whatever your own impulse prompts you to, Lord of yourself, I crown and mitre you. So again, Virgil's not telling Dante that has unlimited permission, like he's God or anything now, but he's saying, look, God has now reordered your will. You've come through hell. You've gone through purgation. Your loves have been reordered. You're where you need to be. You can move on and pass on into paradise. So the crown and mitre suggest both temporal and spiritual authority and cleanliness. So Dante is no longer ruled by his competing appetites. And that's what I've got. So this is where we'll leave off. But if there are any final thoughts before we're done for the night, have at them. All right. Well then, we are in Eden.